G'day guys, how you going? I'm AP Calculus, and today I'll be reading the first half of Chapter 3 of Double Dare by Toad Lily AUs. Chapter 3 is called Putting in the Work, and here is the summary. Dare goes on patrol, Midoriya has his first day of work, and makes a new friend. Hope you guys enjoy, and let's get right into this. Dare is well aware of the work of heroes is more than just beating up villains, though sometimes the big-name pros forget that. More often than not, it's the rescue missions, being first responders in natural disasters, saving pets that end up in tall trees or slimy ditches, and lots of paperwork. Luckily, as a vigilante, he is spared the last part, but the rest still holds firm for him. Dare is patched into 3 separate feeds to ensure he arrives on the scene of wherever he is needed. The first is an algorithm that scans popular forums and social media sites for any ongoing crimes in progress. The second is a traffic and weather scanner that informs him of any major accidents or storms causing havoc. And the last patch feed is for local police departments. That way he knows when the pros are about to arrive so he can skedaddle. A new club recently opened downtown, and it led to a slight uptick in the number of car accidents happening between the hours of 11 p.m. and 4 a.m. when the patrons started heading out. And it's for this reason that Dare's patrol route has shifted a little closer to that area for the past week or so, having already pulled people out of their cars to a safer area on more than one occasion. Tonight, however, was a particularly bad accident. Luckily, Dare spotted the swerving vehicle and was already halfway down the fire escape of the building he was perched on by the time the collision happened. The car in the back hit the much smaller one in front of it with enough force to send it flying into the one in the front, jumping over the top of it and landing upside down on the other side. The now center vehicle spun out and was also rammed in by the vehicle in the back, which finally slowed the speeding vehicle's momentum enough to stop it. And the one in the back may as well have been an accordion with how much it had folded itself in half. Dare stared with the overturned vehicle in front, determining they would have the hardest time trying to find a way out on their own. He was right. The driver and its 2 passengers were knocked out. Dare used a pocket knife to cut them loose out of their seatbelts and guided them out, trying his hardest to be gentle and avoid debris, while still moving as quickly as possible. Time is of the essence in a crash like this, and it's better to gain a few extra scratches than to lose an extra life. The fireman carried the ladies over to the other side of the road and propped them up against the guardrails under a streetlight, setting down a few road flares to ensure they would be seen. Then he moved back to the car in the back. The petty part of him was tempted to leave the car for last, given that the drunk driving was what caused the accident in the first place. But he could see the guy in there was in pretty bad shape, with glass sticking out of various parts of his body and blood running down his face. So Dare pulled him out next, prioritized the rescue and all that. The man was barely conscious, slurring out various noises and sobs as opposed to any real words. He didn't seem to have any passengers with him, so at least there was that. Dare deposited the man with the girls, making a mental note to try and stop some of his bleeding first chance he got to prevent him from bleeding out later. The scanner on his arm informed him that someone had called the incident in, and cops and ambulances would be there in 5 minutes. That meant he only had 4.5 minutes to assist the car in the center. Dare pulled out the driver first, using his elbow to break the window in order to reach her. He didn't see anyone in the passenger seat, but what he saw in the backseat made his stomach drop. There was a child, eyes wide, face blanched and hyperventilating in place of real cries. They must be in shock, but mercifully The only major injury Dare could see was a possibly broken arm. Dare was Dare decided pulling the kid out first was a better course, so he quickly sprung over to the other side of the car and tried the door, but it was dented in a bit and it took a bit of force. He was able to get it open. Dare was happy about this. Breaking the window next to an already hyperventilating child would have only made things worse. He did his best to sound gentle and reassuring as he spoke. Hey there, everything's going to be okay. I'm here to help. The child didn't answer him, but he turned his head to meet their eyes, so Dare was pretty sure he could still hear him. That was a good sign. I'm going to take you over. I'm going to reach over you real quick to get you unhooked, alright? When the kid made a motion that almost looked like a nod, he went to work. The buckle itself released on the second try, so then Dare walked the kid through the next step. Okay, I'm gonna pick you up now, and then I'm gonna carry you over to where you can wait for the paramedics. Everything is going to be alright. He scooped up the now crying child into a bridal style carry, and was halfway to the makeshift med zone when he heard the kid muttering, Your mum? Dare guessed. The kid nodded with enough force to jostle his whole body, eyes wide and sparkling with tears. I'm going to pull her out next, don't worry. More help is on its way too. I know it's scary, but you're doing a great job. You're being very brave. The kid dissolved into whimpers and snot as he was set down next to the other victims. By the time he returned to the car, the mother had already started to stir. She was waking up. This was both a good and a bad thing. Good because it meant her injuries weren't that serious, and bad because this was also the point people tended to panic, and he already had one shocked victim on his hands. Not to mention a fight response would make it 10 times harder to help guide them out of the window. Luckily, she seemed more of the flight type. She made a sound like a scream, but without any of the necessary oxygen to give it any real volume. As she scrambled from her seatbelt. Hey, it's alright. You're gonna be fine. I'm here to help you. Your child's already safe. Please let me help. The woman didn't respond, but with her seatbelt now off, she wordlessly reached her arms through the window and grabbed a hold of Dare's shoulders, squeezing them for dear life. Dare laid his forearm along the bottom of the window. His arm would be a much nicer thing to crawl on than broken glass. He used his other arm to help pull the woman through. Once her torso was out, he readjusted his arms to pull her into a fireman's carry over his shoulder and carefully pulled her out the rest of the way. The feeling of glass being worked out of his now shifting arm was mildly distracting, but he'd worked with worse shifts mid-rescue before. The woman and child had a tearful reunion embrace, and Dare couldn't help but smile a little at the sight. They checked the sensors again for the time. He still had about 30 seconds. 3 unfortunate things happened in quick succession. The first was that the drunk man with the glass very suddenly woke up and jumped to his feet. The second was, unlike the mother before, the fear response was most definitely fight. He began swinging and yelling like a cornered animal. Dare was quick to throw himself in the path between the man and the others, who in turn quickly pinned his arms to the side. And then the third thing, Dare could hear the sound of sirens fast approaching from the distance. The man posed a clear and evident threat to himself and the others, but Dare did not have the time to talk him down or subdue him by any other means, meaning the only real option was to knock the man back out and make a run for it. The man was strong and unwieldingly enough that Dare's arms were too preoccupied holding him back to use any pressure points. So, with reluctant realization, Dare realized that he would need to knock him out with the most unpleasant of methods. Shouting just enough to hear for the man to hear him over the sounds of his drunken filled cries, Dare said, "I'm really sorry about this, but if it's any consolation, it's gonna suck for both of us." And then he quickly reared his head back and slammed it forward into a blunt headbutt, knocking the already drunk and bleeding man out with little to no fight. The headache was severe and instantaneous, blurring Dare's vision for just a moment, but he had no time to wait it out. The first of the vehicles would be rounding the corner any second now, so without any knowledge of where he was going, Dare took down Dare took off down the street in the opposite direction of the sirens. A block or two later, Dare gained enough of his mental functions back to realize to turn down some alleyways he recognized and climb up the side of the building to wait the rush out. It was only then when he realized how potentially fucked they were. That three people had seen him and he didn't have time to ask them not to tell others about him. The wrong keywords end up in the news or police report, and it would be like a homing beacon telling his captors where he was. Hopefully, the mix of poor lighting, adrenaline, and inebriation would be enough that they wouldn't have much to say. But if any of them saw him mid-healing, he would be in some real trouble. This was plenty of action for one night, and he needed to get off the streets and out of anyone's sight until he could be sure he was in the clear. He took the long way to get back to the beach. If he was already being followed, then he wanted his route to seem sporadic, as if he was still on patrol, and not like he was heading home. When he finally returned home, he took a look in the mirror to assess the damage. Luckily, his eyes seemed unchanged, but the forehead and nose seemed different, as was his arm. Izuku should still be able to recognize him, but the differences were still obvious. Dara knew Izuku was curious about it. He was curious about everyone's quirks, and the more interesting the quirk or the closer his proximity to it, the more curious he became. But still, he never asked Dare about his. Part of Dare was curious to know what he had thought about it. Had he already figured it out at all? Did he know more than Dare did? Or was he completely in the dark? Dare didn't ask either. The less he knew, the safer it would be for both of them. Thus far, he managed to avoid any reset happening in front of him, only showing him the end result after the fact. But it was inevitably going to happen at some point. They worked out together and worked with a lot of hazardous materials in unstable surroundings. At some point, an accident was bound to happen. How would Izuku react? Would he be scared of him again? Dare shook his head, more to clear his train of thought than anything. He had more important things to worry about right now, like whether or not he needed to make a run for it. Dare set up the search parameters and ran the program on his laptop, scanning for any mention of him or the accident. An hour later, the story finally broke. With pessimistic hope, he read the article. Mysterious figure saves 6 from multi-car pileup. Shit. Okay. So someone had mentioned his presence, but no need to panic just yet. It's possible that their descriptions would be vague enough that it couldn't lead back to him. Dare read through the article quickly, skimming for the part where he would be described. Most of the victims of the accident were unconscious at the time of the rescue, though who were awake had little to say about their rescuer. I don't remember much, I'm afraid. Whoever they were, they seemed really kind. They saved Tori and I, that much I'm sure of. I wish I knew who it was so I could say thank you. Mother and driver of the second vehicle, Miss Uzumaki said. Her son, Tori, was also unable to give a proper description. When Hero Network 10 reporters questioned the driver of the first vehicle, he had this to say: "I'm truly sorry and ashamed of my actions and trouble that I've caused. I'm glad no one was more seriously injured, and I'm sure that it is in no due part small to it is due in no small part to the hero's quick response." When informed that there was no heroes dispatched to the scene last night, they maintained that, whatever their profession, they acted heroically, and I have them to thank for that. Beyond this, they have no information of the appearance or identity of the individual. The article went on to mention the revocation of the initial driver's license and the mandatory probation and re-education program to minimize the risk of future drunk driving. They even made a connection between this and the other incidents earlier in the week, following the club's new opening. An interview with the owner of the club promised new policies that limited the number of drinks patrons were allowed to drink, without proof of a safe way home. All in all, the results were the best Darrow could have hoped for. Based on this, he was in the clear. He hacked into the police reports to confirm no identifying information was given to them either before he finally let out a sigh of relief. Darrow checked their phone before getting ready for bed. The only message Darrow received since patrol started was a gif of a sponge-shaped cartoon character chewing on its fingers nervously, like some would chew at nail beds. He didn't understand the reference, but he understood the meaning behind it well enough. Izuku's first day of work was tomorrow, and he was really nervous about it. The new classes seemed to be going well, but since the job was in person, he felt like his chances of running into someone he knew, or otherwise disappointing people, was higher. Earlier in the day, Darrow had tried his best to reassure him about that, but in the end, all he could really do was help was promise that he would meet up with him afterwards. It would be either a celebration of a job well done, or, as a worst case scenario, a pity party for a bad day. They were both hoping for the first. It was too late, or possibly too early depending on one's perspective, to reply, so Dare simply set his phone aside for the night and crawled into bed. Glaring at the roof, Dare let out a deep sigh. They might need to lay low for a few nights, just to be extra safe. Dare was always cautious, but now he had a real reason to stay stationary. The idea of having to pull up stakes to avoid capture was even more painful. Patches the cat crawled on top of him a moment later, purring deeply on top of Dare's chest, soothing the last of his residual anxiety of being discovered anytime soon. The purr sounded to him like a promise. "It's okay, you're safe, you're home." He allowed these imagined words to lull him off to sleep. Okay, guys, that was the first half of Chapter 3 of Double Dare. Hope you guys enjoyed. I know it's a little shorter than the other videos lately, but it is 10 o'clock at night. I have school tomorrow. Well, today, as this video. Hang on. Trying to figure it out. Okay. I'm just stretching out the video at this point, but if you're skipping, yeah, I don't mind. Anyway, as I was saying, the video that was posted yesterday was tomorrow for me. So yeah, I'm a couple of days ahead. But yeah, I just want to be on the safe side. Anyway, have a good day, everyone. I'll see you guys later. Make sure to take care of yourself. Goodbye.